Okay, rock and roll. I was just commenting. I'm with one of my favorite human beings on the
Oh,
planet, who we
yes.
could all use as a model. This is my longtime dear friend, mentor, guide, straight shooter, Dr. Debbie Cruz, who is with me today for another conversational adventure on Don't Get Me Started podcast that I'm so looking forward to. For those of you that have never encountered, spent time with, heard of Dr. Cruz, I'm going to let her do a brief intro. The amount of generosity and humility that
Um,
this woman has is extraordinary, in addition to brilliance. So Debbie, for the listeners and viewers that maybe aren't familiar with you or any of your work, how would you what's your elevator introduction for yourself with everything you've done?
oh, thanks, Christopher. What a nice intro you make. That's the best one of all. We've been friends for I don't know how many years, Christopher, and um, I just love every conversation we have because you ask such good questions and you have such good insights and you see it as it is. So this podcast is perfect, I think, for you and what you have to offer to everybody. It's
Well, thank you.
performance and stuff. So
Yeah.
it's a treat to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Mm.
Background, let's see. Played golf growing up. I'm going to make this quick, though. I'm not going to go too far
Now,
there.
there's a
Yeah.
lot to tell.
Well, came at it more from a ex-phys side, uh, doing my graduate work, undergrad and graduate work, and then really uh, got excited about the fact we brought in a professor who did psychophysiology. So,
Right.
looking at the psychological side from physiological measures, we could look at the brain. It was so exciting. So I started working with him in 85, long time ago, 40
Yeah.
years ago. That's 40 years ago. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we were doing research before then on golf, a little bit before. So maybe, 45 years or something like that.
Yeah.
But then we started looking at the brain. So that was
Mm.
really exciting. And I kind of been doing it ever since. And I
Yeah.
liked the sports psychophys better because they didn't leave out the brain, and golf is so mental, So,
Right.
exercise physiologists, they kind of don't pay attention to it. So anyway, we started learning a lot about the brain, what it looks like when people perform well, when they don't perform so well. Can we train
Yes.
it? Yeah, so we did all those programs and research studies. So I was at Arizona State University back then, and I still am. I
Yep.
work with the team now, and I've worked with the team off and on since 1979, women's, and then some with the men's, depending on who the coach is. But I work with some of the players anyway.
Yep.
And then LPGA kind of brought me in the late 90s to help with putting together the education program there,
Yep.
which was really enjoyable. Brought in motor learning and control, motor performance stuff back then. And then sports psych we brought in to all the things they were already doing, which were excellent.
Yeah.
And then nutrition and training, physical training, and then more recently bringing in neuroscience. Uh,
Right.
yeah, and then the World Scientific Congress of Golf.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was invited to be on their board. I think it was like 95, and then took over 2006, I think, and ran
Yep.
the the World Scientific Congress of Golf's seminars
Yes.
for 10 years. That was so enjoyable, Christopher. You're with the top people who do research, and
Yeah.
and they all come together. Half of it was we just love to talk to each other and see
Right.
what's new and different, but they're just an amazing group. And let's see, they'll have another conference here coming up.
Yeah.
I think in line with Olympics. Yeah. So,
Ah,
but at
great.
any rate, yeah, pretty exciting. That's it.
No, there's a lot more, and
Oh,
some things are going to pop up as we go
yeah.
along here. But like with all my guests, I asked you initially, what would you like to speak to? Along the lines of, I use that term a lot, don't get me started, because usually it's things that I don't want to hear because I don't agree with them, or it's just bad information. And now we are in this world of so much information. And of course, everybody's an expert on everything, for better or for worse. And you and I are in the world of helping people. We want people
Yeah.
to get better. We are performance people. And you, as well as anyone, know that, boy, there's a lot of different ways for people to get better. People respond very differently. I think one of the angles that you have that's so important, and for those of you that spent time with me, you're gonna say, "Well, I heard you say that, Christopher," and it's because I stole it from Debbie. Beg, borrow, and steal, all we do. But I think one of the big pieces that I use a lot is people, when it doesn't go right, which is often the case, we always want to go back to the technique or the golf swing in golf or whatever. And for the listeners and viewers here, Debbie's worked with so many great athletes in other domains, other realms, other sports as well. But this blanket statement that thought precedes action is so very important, and it seems to be neglected because we immediately go to what's wrong with the motion or the action instead of getting perhaps to the cause.
Correct.
And the other phrase that I borrow from you is not so much what you're thinking or thinking about, but how you are thinking. And that opens up a whole, bottle of bubbly, a bottle of champagne that we could speak to. But just in general, like, thought preceding action and how important that is. Rather than jumping to, hey, this happened or that happened, could you maybe speak a little bit to the neuroscience of it or the reality of that, and then how we best go about helping people?
Good points. Yeah, always about helping people. The thought precedes motion is, it's going to start somewhere. It's got
Yep.
to start somewhere. So whether it's conscious or subconscious, and a lot of times actually we know more probably now it's more subconscious
Right.
than it is conscious and becomes conscious. But at any rate, it's got to start somewhere. And so that, like you're saying, that would be the beginning point or the root cause. But
Mhm.
what we see then as a result is the swing or the ball flight, so we go to the
Yeah.
ball flight. Well, if that's not the desirable ball flight, then we back up. Oh, it must be the swing. So we're going in the right direction, backing up, but then what precedes the swing is, what you're thinking. So focus of attention, which is critical. What
Yeah.
precedes focus of attention is intention. So what are you asking for? And a lot of times I think players aren't asking for enough. They're asking for something that's not really going to serve them and help them,
Mm.
perform better. And there's
Yeah.
one more step over the recent few years that you and I have talked a lot about, and that's who's walking up to the ball, and the
Right.
mini-me stuff. So who's walking up to the ball really precedes everything. And so if we can kind of get an idea of those things, yeah, what direction would you work if you're out in the middle of your game or you're, playing a tournament or whatever? I
Yeah.
always think if you know a little fix that you do to your swing and it takes care of everything, go ahead. But if it's important, that little fix is probably not going to make the difference because it's not the cause, There's a physical side to everything that happens, and then there's the psychological side. And when it becomes more and more important to us, it's the psychological side
Right.
that's more important. That old analogy of the balance beam that's, a foot off the floor, piece of cake to walk from one end to the other, but you put it between a couple skyscrapers and it's not so easy. So we got to address this side of it probably in order to get across that
No,
balance.
for sure.
Yeah.
And you and I put together, mostly you, of course, with a lot of your research from the Opti system, which is a brain mapping system. And I think what's great about my interaction with Debbie is she's incredibly open-minded about a lot of things, but she, at the end of the day, also, you want to see the science and the research of it. Let me see what's actually happening. And so we put together an article a couple of years ago for Golf Digest called Who's Coming Out to Play? And there's an exercise that I learned from you that I've done in presentations and talks where I'm asking people to identify these different parts of self, these sub-personalities, which freaks everybody out because then they think they're schizophrenic. And so to make it less scary, we dubbed these parts of us our mini-me's.
Hmm.
And we all have them. We can identify them. Often I'll let you speak a little bit more to it. Sometimes it's like, well, what happens to you during a round of golf? What emotions come out? What feelings come out? And then could you give them a name? And those people are all part of us, and they all serve us in some odd way, even though we may
Hmm.
think they don't. And then we get to choose, heaven forbid, we have this great big prefrontal cortex, unlike some of our brothers and sisters, that allow us to choose what we want to pay attention to, but also we get to choose perhaps who we want to be for the particular situation. Could you speak to that a little bit more?
Yes, I started reading that research. Actually, came from Candace Pert.
Yeah.
Such a amazing researcher
Yes.
on emotions, and so she was fascinated with this area, and so I started reading everything on subpersonalities, and then I got stuck inside with a. He was a good amateur player one time, and I thought, oh, well, maybe we'll search this out a little bit. So I had him go through and write out like 4 to 6 different people that he,
Yeah.
has experienced on the golf course. We named all of them, wrote their 3 characteristics, and then I hooked him up so I could look at the brain.
Right.
And I had him just go behind the ball. Well, actually, it was inside but
Yeah.
he wasn't going to hit it. So go behind the ball and just hold the club and be that person. And I'm measuring his brain. And it was so amazing to me because the brain maps were so different.
Mm,
And some of the ones that you think serve you and are helping you out there,
right.
he had a calm guy and he had a karate guy. He thought
Mm,
they were not good brain maps. I mean, I've been looking at them too long to know.
yeah.
And I'll tell you, his perfectionist and his focus guy, they were great maps and they were identical. And he's
Interesting.
thinking the perfectionist is a bad thing to be, and the focus guy is good. And I said, well, they're the same in your brain, so I'm not sure it matters. And so he went out the next day. He put the 2 together. He calls me after 9 holes, and he was 3 under, which for him
Wow.
was really good.
Yeah.
But that's perception, thinking one's bad and one's good. But
Yeah.
the brain maps were telling us something completely different.
Interesting.
And you were great too. You've experienced some of the times when you go out and test them.
Yeah.
You're scared guy that your superpower jumps in and saves you every time, and you hit good shots. It's so the ones you think are not going to help you sometimes do help you. Sometimes
Yeah.
very
There's
good,
there's a time and a place for everyone. And again,
right?
people get freaked out because they think of, split personalities and Sybil and schizophrenics that are kind of on the extremes. But I love doing this exercise with people, a group, and just,
Yeah.
okay, what happens to you? What do you feel out on the golf course? And then give them a name. And sometimes they're funny names and sometimes they're serious names, but they're all part of us. Even someone who gets angry, as I've learned from you, anything that gives you energy as an emotion can be very, very useful. Everybody thinks it's a
Yes.
bad thing. And then anything that's an energy, vampire sucks it away from you, head down, shoulders slumped. Somebody asked me a few weeks ago what I used to do as a kid. Well, I was a pouter. When things didn't go right, I
Oh.
would pout. I didn't get angry, but I pouted, but that didn't serve me. And
Mm-mm.
so I think what's important is to be aware of these different parts of self, these mini me's
Right.
that we all have. And then if one pops up, you kind of go, hey, how are you? And I'd like you to go sit over here right now because I don't need you right now.
Right.
And so I think it's so important because that goes directly back to what you said just a few minutes ago about what is causing this domino effect of your golf ball is not behaving. Right? And I tell
Right.
people when people ask me randomly, I met a bunch of random people. We had the USA Track and Field National
Oh, yeah.
Championships the last few days here in Eugene. So these are the athletes that'll be going to the World Championships in track and field. and people that didn't know me, and there was some that did, some that did. I said, well, I'm into golf ball behavior is what I do, because when
To be
people
the
come to
ball.
me, they want their golf ball is misbehaving.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. It's not going far enough. It's not going straight enough. It's not going in the hole, blah, blah, blah. And then so to backtrack, it's very easy to say, well, this is off or this is off. But to go all the way back, which you've seen with the science and with the brain maps, there's a few more steps that sometimes we're missing.
Correct. Yeah. Lately, it's interesting you brought that up, Christopher, because lately I've been telling several players that are out there on the tour stuff, you got to be accountable to your ball. You have to be
Yeah.
accountable to your ball or for, it's not enough to just make good swings. It's not you gotta, if you're going to score, you got to get the ball in position, so, if you're always mad at your ball, it's probably not going to work so good. And, but if one of my players from long ago, her picture was that this was when she was like 5, that, there was somebody inside the ball with a steering wheel, and she was running him. She was telling him what to do, and when
Wow.
they didn't listen, well, they'd go somewhere else. She'd just have to get him back on track. And I
Yeah.
thought, what a great analogy! What a great perception. But because still she was running the ball and she was
Yeah.
having it do what she wanted to, and it would get off once in a while, but you got to get it back on.
Yeah.
What a great picture.
For sure. And as you know, I've again learned from you, when people are over any shot, like, who's in charge? The player
Yes.
is in charge. And
Yeah.
we become very weak at times and feel like, oh, it's, I'm not in charge. The ball's in charge, or something else
Right.
is in charge. And we need to take that, power back. And it gets tough. I think when the ball starts misbehaving badly, we feel helpless. And
Right.
we need to have things to go to. And I think that's one of the things you do so well with all your players and all your athletes is, golf sport is easy. Life is easy when the road is smooth. But as I like to tell people now, a round of golf is it's like taking hallucinogens and going to Disneyland. It's an adventure. And
It's an
if you're
adventure.
not ready for that, you're going to struggle. And if you understand that, the ups and downs, the peaks and the valleys, and you have maybe some tools
Right.
at your disposition, whatever they may be, to manage those. And sometimes it's not always bad. Sometimes people, this, it's very easy to sabotage good rounds of golf. People get
Oh, yeah.
going, and then it's, well, I'm out of my comfort zone. I better, make some stupid bogeys to come back. So, so much of it, it's cliche. We call this a mental game, and I don't think you like the moniker of being a mental coach. But
Performance is much better. I
yes,
prefer performance. But like you're saying, Christopher, you're making a really good point. All of sport or perform, it's a transfer of energy. And the question is, what energy do you want to transfer to that ball? Because the
yeah,
ball's going to fly with whatever you're giving it, but you have a choice about it. It starts with
right,
walking up to the ball and what energy you have right now, and then letting it go, giving it to the ball instead of hanging on for dear life,
yeah,
so you have the high rights or else trying to over control, and you have the low lefts and all those things. But we go back, and if we can attach which psychological state brings out those patterns, then
right,
we can do something with the psychological state. We understand that. We back up. We get the right person swinging. So you made one of the things that, after doing this a long time, is people come because they miss shots and they want help with recovery and resilience and all of that, which is important.
yeah,
Okay. But I think what I've learned over all this time is if we can help get you set up correctly before you step up to the ball,
yeah,
you're not going to deal with most of that stuff. It's not irrelevant. It's just that if you set yourself up and you get the right person up there and you do
yeah,
everything you know to do, which is a lot. I'm not saying it's easy. We
yeah,
simplify it. You do that every day on the lesson tee as well as on the golf course. But then, however it comes out, it's not so bad because you set yourself up right before you ever hit that ball,
Right.
which we've talked a lot about.
Yeah, and we spend a lot of time, especially with newer players, but even with, I made a setup adjustment. I played as you know, you helped me a lot with this Senior British Open, the Senior Open
Yeah.
qualifier a couple weeks ago. Actually, that was 2 weeks
Great.
ago today. And we talk a lot about setup and, with golf as far as, how you're holding it, how you're standing, the aiming, ball, blah, blah, blah. But I wonder sometimes if people are set up emotionally, if they're set up cognitively, if they're set up mentally, if you will, for each and every shot. And some of that stuff's simple. It's not simple to do.
Right.
But as I've learned from you, and I share with students, what do you want? What do you
Yeah.
have intention on each and every shot? Because if you don't, you're toast. And this is when the don'ts and the shoulds and supposed tos and all the negative things pop in. And so that's what's being pre-programmed. Instead of, and that'd be like having an awful setup. You come to me and your grip's awful and you're aiming 45 degrees to the right and your clubs don't fit you. Other than that, things are perfect. And then you expect the golf ball to behave.
That's right.
But I don't think a lot of people get guidance in that area, Debbie, about, and also for them specifically, because as you know better than anyone, I mean, if the brain maps change from each individual human, depending on their state of mind, if you like that, then heaven forbid, what happens when you get all these different people? And that's one of the traps we all fall into, I think, in golf instruction, life, and everything else now, is we like to create models for people and put people in buckets, and everybody does it this way or that way. Now we have by far the best player in the world, Scotty Scheffler, who, well, he's just it's incredibly different. Everything he does, the way he thinks, the way he swings, he looks like Fred Astaire with his footwork. So what if I'll see his coach Randy Smith here in a week?
Oh, no.
What if Randy tried to put him, in some kind of method or model back in the day? Well, most of us probably wouldn't know who he is. So
true. That's exactly right. Yep.
Now, along the line, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to add in, like those mini-me's you're talking about and what you're talking about, Scotty. They're all authentic. They're all you, that old line, fake it till you make it, not always my favorite. But if we actually understand more correctly, probably, that these are all you. They're authentic. They're not being somebody you're not. And lots of times, Christopher, I have to, for myself, I make up new mini-me's, to deal with a situation, and it works great because the one that's in there right now might not be serving me so well. But and
I know I got these out on purpose for this talk. One of the things people say, well, if you're going along and it's not going great, well, you got to put a different pair of glasses on.
Yes,
right?
that's
so now all of a sudden my whole life just changed.
That's right.
So, this might brighten my golf ball's behavior, and if those don't work, here we go. I got my readers now. I put these on,
Oh yeah, you could
or
see
I could change my hat, but it's easy to get stuck, and I think people get. And I want to talk a little bit about what you've done with the Yips, but people get stuck in these patterns where they say, well, this is what I did yesterday and it worked really well. This is what happened. This is what I did on the front nine and it worked really well. This is what I did 30 years ago.
Yes.
And it worked really well. But last I checked, I believe it's August 4th today, 2025. So we all need to, we've got to accept where we're at, acknowledge it, adjust and adapt. Otherwise we're in big trouble. And I'm sure you've seen a lot of people, just playing golf, but also back to some of the Dr. Cruz. Debbie has been part of multiple studies on the Yips. She's one of the foremost experts in the world on the Yips. She didn't mention that early. I think you've been part of 3 or 4 studies at the Mayo Clinic, along with Dr. Adler and some others, to really better, again, in order to help people, you need to understand what's actually happening, the facts, the science, rather than well, I think this or try that. Could you speak a little bit to that?
Yes, can I comment on a couple of
Yeah.
good points you already made? So we do. We want to, when you were talking about, we want to go back. We want 30 years ago to how I did it, or yesterday how I
Yeah.
did it, or the
Yeah.
front nine, I just did it and it's not working. Okay, so I always hear the players, I want to go back. You can't go back. There is no going back. I'm sorry. The only direction, we have a concept called forward focus. It's the only direction you can go. You got to go, you'll bring with you what's going to serve you and help you for this shot. Only,
Yeah.
for the one in front of you. And we'll take one of these at a time, and then we'll get everything in place the best we can and let it rip and take what comes afterwards. But if I set myself up right and I can stay in it all the way to the finish of the
Yep.
swing, you did your job. And then it's easier, to go forward again. And so forward, you can't go back. You're going to go forward, and it's an adventure. And Yips, I have so much compassion for those people. I mean, I started with Mayo 2000 in the,
Okay.
first going to Mayo in Rochester. We did this big Yips
Yeah.
study. We had a guy fly in from St. Andrews to be part of the study.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
it was really impressive. Yeah, we put him through hard situations. We gave him beta blockers.
Yeah.
We did all of it, and then we've done probably 4 more since then here in Scottsdale with
Mm.
Charles Adler, and Christians helped us.
Yeah.
Mark, in Germany, but you learn a lot from the people who are really good. You study them, and you learn a ton from the people who struggle, maybe more.
Yeah.
And those people have taught me so much, because usually we'll test them and then I'll go out lots of times and spend time trying to help them afterwards.
Yeah.
And so what have we learned? Let's see. Well, you remember our mental myths seminar we've done
Yes.
before?
Which we're going to talk about in a minute.
One of the ones in there is we think anxiety is the cause. We think anxiety is the cause of yips, and we also think it's the cause of choking. But in reality, anxiety is not the cause.
Mm.
Okay, it simply exacerbates the condition. And so it means, like, if we come in there with beta blockers and we block the effects, it doesn't necessarily mean the yip or the choke's going away.
Interesting.
Okay, yeah,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So we've had them. I'll never forget. I just take a minute, because this
Yeah.
was probably the most eye-opening YIP study to me. We were in Mayo Clinic up in Scottsdale in a little office with a piece of carpet on the floor, and we had 10 yippers come in. They put 75 putts for us, all hooked up, everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Heart, EMG, videos, everything. And they're putting a 3-foot putt, a 6-foot putt, and an 8-foot putt.
Okay.
And 75 of them. And we had some of them walk out and say, "I'm sorry I didn't yip any for you today." and they yipped every single one of them, and we have it on video. And they didn't even feel it. They didn't know it, because it wasn't big. We needed them to yip. They knew we needed, so we could study it. So they made it okay to yip. And then there was no anxiety, right? And so I realized that it's when they get out with their friends and there might be a little money on the line, and it means more, that it gets too big and it starts missing the hole. But the crazy thing is, they made most of those 75 putts that they did in the office. They made them all. And it's just that, so I don't care if you yip it in or you putt it in, just get it in. They could get it in the hole still, but it's once the anxiety comes in, the middleman makes it so big that it starts missing the hole. Yeah.
I see.
Yeah. So a lot of it is, yes, we wanna take that middleman out if we can, as much as possible. It's the fear of it that's the problem. And usually it's the fear of anything that's the problem. Fear and doubt, right?
Fear and doubt. Yeah.
Fear and doubt, so it brings up another one, Christopher.
Yes.
I kind of wanted to talk to you about today. Because
why we're here.
We can measure everything, The one I have a little hard time with is people get so hung up on aim, right? Whatever they're aiming, they're so hung up on it. We bring people in the lab they never aim correctly, straight on 0 degrees,
Yeah, yeah,
perfect. They never do. They're a little bit off here, a little bit off there. They're in the
yeah,
ballpark. And
yeah,
so all of Pelt's work, he used to do the same thing and
yeah.
thousands of putts, okay? They're never quite on when they set it, but as soon
Mm,
as they come through in motion, they're much more correct in terms of their aim because the system really knows where it
mm,
is when it's in motion. It's hard for the system to understand it as well when everything's still because it stores
interesting.
things in relative terms. So
Yeah,
when it's in motion, it knows much better where it is, from that perspective. Um, so the aim one, we'll go back to that.
yeah,
Because we can measure now so precisely and
yeah.
people get hung up on whether they're aimed correctly, to me, I think the doubt of whether, or the question of whether I'm aimed
Right.
correctly is worse than if I'm aimed off. Do you
Yeah,
see what I'm saying?
yeah.
So they're going to be a little bit off. It's okay. As soon as they get in motion, they're okay. But the fear or the doubt or the question is killing them and they don't have a chance of getting the ball in the hole
Yeah,
because this is in the
I've
wrong
used this
place.
for years. I mean, doubt has brought down civilizations, let alone a putting stroke. And
Right.
this gets into the perfectionist piece that you and I have chatted a lot about. And some of this came from my speed golf background, where I played hundreds of rounds of golf. This is just a fact. It's not me showboating. Hundreds of rounds of golf, shooting under par in under an hour with only a handful of clubs. And I think about all the putting stuff I've done. So I've never marked the ball, cleaned it, walked around and read it for 5 minutes and then put it down with the logo or whatever. And I'm not saying that's wrong, because we're all about whatever helps people. But I also think that intuitively, instinctively, perhaps subconsciously, if you put out there, again, what do you want? Well, I want the ball to go in the hole. The system, mind, body, brain, spirit, soul, whatever else you want to add to that, is very good at accomplishing the task. And people forget that. And so
Yes.
back to your point, the doubt that is present, if we don't think that the aim is perfect, is worse than it maybe not being perfect. And
Right.
maybe it doesn't have to be perfect. Now, if it's awful, that's one thing. I've seen
Correct.
people that are awful aimers where, maybe it's a visual thing, maybe it's something other, and they use the line on the ball and it does help them.
Sure.
Um,
For
but
a
it's
while.
for a while. Yep. And that in and of itself could create the anxiety that you spoke to. Back
Correct.
to the yips real quick. I mean, we talk about
Yep.
physiological and physical and psychological, what's causing it. And then more importantly, everybody wants, this is true in everything, everybody wants a cure. Um, and, are there cures or are there remedies? Do we need to have a little toolkit that we walk around with if we feel, and I think you've seen this with the brain mapping, these people know when the yips are coming on, whether it's
Oh, yeah.
putting, chipping, or even driving, which you've seen.
Yeah. So good point. Good questions. So first is there's degrees of yips affected people. Okay. And
Mm.
I always want to know, well, it helps me at least to know how severe it is for them. Okay.
Yeah.
You got, uh, our research suggests 7% are neurologic, the other 93% are psychological. Okay, for
Mm.
the most part. So what are we going to help them with? Well, neurologic, everything we do psychological will help the neurologic too, but they might need a little more help as well. Whether they do beta blockers or they do uh, um, I forget the drug right now. Oh, Botox.
Oh,
Botox.
they have the Botox.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Botox is
Yeah.
another. But at any rate, the majority of people, it's going to be psychologically induced. So, I mean, my little test that I've always done is, if I can see them, is I'll have them close their eyes and putt. If it
Mm.
goes away, they don't have it very bad. If it gets drastically better, they're still in the ballpark. If it
Yeah.
doesn't happen in practice, if it doesn't happen when it doesn't mean much, because they're conditional and they're intermittent and they can be both. So it only happens when it means a lot to me. Okay, or I'm in a
Mm.
tournament or my buddies. Okay, or it comes and goes. I just change my hands. I go to the claw. It
Yeah.
can take care of it for the next year or two, but it it's intermittent. It
Mm.
could be both. So it could take care of it. In a tournament, I still have a problem a little bit, but it comes and goes because there's tour players I've worked with. They have the yips. They're usually, if you have yips, it's because you were excellent at that part of your game.
Oh,
It's the
interesting.
part of their game that they were often the very best at. And so
Interesting.
we've been trying to figure out, in the brain what the differences are. We know the most actually from musicians when they do autopsies that the motor cortex is here, and we used to think dysfunctional motor cortex,
Yeah.
but it's actually right behind that is the sensory
Sensory.
cortex, and it's the sensory cortex that's enlarged, that's dysfunctional right now,
Okay.
more so, but it feeds into the motor cortex and what
Right.
motor programming you're going to be doing for this motion. So the idea then comes if we want to help these people, we have to change the sensory input in order
Right.
to change the motor output. So that's where people want one thing. Well, the idea of one is probably what got them yippy in the first place. There's one perfect swing, one
Yeah.
perfect speed, one perfect way I got to do it. That's not true. There's 100 ways they could get that ball in the hole.
Yeah.
So that's not true, but that is not good for us. And then, you know, um, when I work with them, I want them to walk away with 5 to 7 different
Mm.
activities they could do in order to help themselves. So whatever's going to work over this putt is what I do. I've had people use 4 different hand positions in a
Right.
round of golf easily.
Right.
Whatever feels the best for this one, you have the most confidence, you do. And so what we're actually doing, I think, Christopher, is we're outsmarting the yip. We're
Yes.
staying one step
Mm.
ahead of it,
Out of it. Yeah.
yeah, rather than trying to fix it. I don't know that you fix it. You just stay one step ahead and outsmart it and eliminate as much as you can the fear of it, right?
And be open to new things or different things if you're, and we've talked about this, and I use this a lot. Your gut's always right.
I
So if your
think
gut
so.
tells you, hey, I'm going to go in there and stand on one foot, and for the listeners, I know, people always want simple things, and I learned this from you in your studies, is with these things, if you change your feet or your hands, it makes a big difference. And it may not last, but nothing lasts. Nothing is permanent. But initially, it could help a lot.
Right.
Just a hand. I remember you finding once too that most of the time in golf, it's a little odd. Our hands are touching somehow.
Oh,
And then
separate your
if we
hands.
separate the hands, I'm guessing it's the brain that goes, holy Toledo. That's very different.
That's right.
And then back to this sensory motor output, kind of domino effect. Included in the sensory, obviously there would be a lot of sensory here, but would feelings and emotions not be part of the sensory system that
Right.
then influences largely the output?
Correct. A really good point. Because, like you mentioned a little earlier, these people know it's coming before it comes. They
Yeah.
feel it. I mean, they just hit their shot into the green, and now they're on the green, and they know they got a putt, and here it starts. And so, we attempt to give they can pick different mini-me's, which is probably what
Yeah.
the first step.
Yeah.
That little edge on the green, the fringe or whatever that you want to call it these days, apron, whatever.
Yeah.
It's like, no, you don't get to cross that little line until you get in a place where you're in charge. It doesn't mean you have to guarantee the ball's going in the hole, or you don't have to guarantee the motion at all.
Yeah.
But you know what you're doing, and confidence is always, I know. So it's, what do you know you can do? Well, I can read the putt, and I can make a plan, and I can know where I'm going to enter it into the hole I use the
Yeah.
clock,
Yeah.
That's enough. So you walk up, you put everything in place, and you finish the motion, which is what yippers don't do. They'll go blank in their mind before, because their consciousness is smart. It's leaving town. It's not going to experience that yip one more time. So they're gone most of the time, and we have to reel them back in and give their conscious mind something to do, which is most of the time it's just hold your finish or get to your finish, feel your finish. And there's feel again that comes in. And now they have a chance. Yeah. And a way to get through all the way to the end. And it
Right.
might not be perfect, but it'll be a lot better than what it would have been.
then going in there with just utter fear and doubt and hope,
Yeah.
which is an emotion you and I have talked about. A lot of people say, I hope this or hope that. And I remember you saying to me a couple of years ago that that's all fine and dandy, but it's actually kind of a weak emotion. And you gave me 2 words before I went to play the Senior Open qualifier, which were strong and brave.
Yeah.
And you think about it, you think, well, what's the deal with golf? I'm not gonna die. It's not a NASCAR race or or an adventure sport, which I'd love to talk a little bit with you about these adventure athletes where they're as calm as can be, and if they mess up, they die. Golf, I lost a stroke or a penalty stroke, but just going in with that intention, and again, having a game plan. Most people, they
Yes.
don't have one, and then they give up on it because guess what? It doesn't always work. Well, if it worked all the time, then you'd be playing golf for a living, which only a handful do. So,
Right.
let's jump a little bit. We'll jump around somewhat, but I know when I inadvertently named I'm an accidental podcaster, as you know. I had no intention of doing. People have asked me for years to do it, and then I did my initial conversation with the one and only Hugh Marr, who I spent some time with in London a couple of weeks
Right.
ago, and we got into some. I don't know. I guess we bickered a little bit. We're best of friends, but we don't suffer fools easily, and so I find myself throughout a day, certainly about golf because it's been my life for so long, is I just don't get me started on a certain topic, because for lack of a better way of putting it, it's wrong. It's not helping. It's BS. It's bad information. Vegetarian lions, as I like to say, that they're not out there. Sorry. And so I know there's a few things. We did a talk together, a presentation together for the PGA of America around the merchandise show a few years ago called Mental Myths, because I hear these a lot. And I'd like you to discuss a few of those, if not all of those things that you hear people say. I am so fascinated when I go to a public driving range. I totally understand why people are so bad. Between what they're thinking, what they're saying to themselves, what they're trying to do with their golf swing, it's just, it's a viral video every time I go. But the mental myths, of which there, I guess, are many. Be happy to listen to you discuss a few of those.
Oh, we can do it together because we did that seminar. But you know what? Let me start with one that wasn't in our presentation back
Yeah.
then. But I'm reminded of it all the time. So I love stats. I love numbers and stuff like that. Okay. And then we video most things, and I'm always showing people their videos, not because to look at their swing. I just want to have them see, who's walking up to the ball and how they're doing things. And a picture's worth 1,000 words. So we see something that gets off in a video, or we look at our stats, and what we see is information. It's correct. It's numbers. I love numbers. But that doesn't mean that you focus on that in order to make it better. So the easiest example is back to the yips. We can go to Charles Barkley. He had the yip as well at the top of his swing, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what do? They focus on the yip. The one thing with yips you never do is focus on the problem, because if you focus on the problem, you make it bigger, not smaller. So in reality, from a mental perspective, what you want to focus past the yip in time. Okay, so we needed to get him something going forward, maybe even past the ball. That's why finish works so good. So the one I want to make an important point of is what you think to get the outcome you want is not necessarily the problem. That you're like, this problem was a big problem for him. But you don't necessarily focus on the problem. So like, for all of us, how do you know what to focus on? Well, I'm usually asking the players, but past the problem in time. Anything past the problem in time will help them. And then we call it self-organization. This will fix itself. This figures out, and it can do it faster and better than our conscious can, because the subconscious is in there figuring out how to make it better. And it can do it much faster.
I think we see that, just real quick. I still see that a lot. People come in and their backswing's funky, and you say, oh, the backswing's the problem, and maybe it is, and maybe it needs to be modified, but then you give them something to focus on the forward part,
Yep.
maybe even impact. They're just, hey, did you know your face was here, blah, 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 or something in the follow
Right.
through. And then in putting their focus of attention, I want to talk about that too, because people are like, oh, I don't want to think when I swing. Well, fine, don't think, but you better pay attention to something when you swing.
Feel.
Right? It's
Feel
not this
would be better.
brain dead, and probably
Yeah.
something sensory, feel,
Mm-hmm.
the flight of the ball, whatever.
Yeah.
But anyway, back to this backswing thing and focusing on something later on, impact or follow through. Then you look at the video and say, holy crap, your backswing changed. How'd you do that?
Correct.
Well, I wasn't thinking about my backswing.
Correct.
So I liked
The point.
it's self-organized. The subconscious jumped in there and said, well, in order for me to get here, I got to go here.
Right. So, yeah, and one of our mental myths we did present was lots
Yeah.
of times people think what they do after the ball doesn't matter because
Doesn't
the
matter.
ball's gone, but that's not true at all because it's like tennis. All the spins you put on the ball are
Yeah.
all, and baseball, hitting a baseball, we know this from the research. How they finish is absolutely critical for the ball that they just hit, so they're focused here. And
Yeah.
it influenced everything that happened before that without my having to think about it and micromanage it and all those things we keep doing. So, it's kind of like pass the ball as a critical point in time. And we actually have time to consciously influence it because from the top to here is the ball is 250 milliseconds.
Yeah.
Consciously, you're not going to do anything in there. Okay.
Yeah.
You can put the thought in at the top or past it and have, especially if the thing's traveling 100 miles an hour,
Yeah.
so you can use the top of the backswing or past impact, and you actually might be able to influence it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was another one.
And I wonder too, because we're getting so much information and data now and on impact, which, okay, at the end of the day, it's geometry and physics. The ball goes where it goes. It behaves the way it behaves because of what's happening at impact. But impact's just this kind of blip in the radar of time, to your point. So then we need to back up and say, okay, my impact isn't exactly my golf ball's not behaving. Where do I need to go to make that better? And then, like you said, often it's after. It's forward.
It's easier, it's faster, and you let the subconscious then make the adjustments for you, which it will on every single swing out there. It's making I calculate from my motor control information, we can make about 10 adjustments at the subconscious level in the 2,000 millisecond swing easily.
Wow.
10 adjustments, but consciously, you don't have a chance. It's just, it's not fast enough. It's just slow and behind the 8 ball. Too late, too little.
And
too
then,
late.
again, I've learned for you, and I presented at the Golf Magazine Top 100 a couple months ago. The subconscious is basically running the show and everything we do in life. And I think what bothers people is the conscious doesn't have access to the subconscious. Largely, it can't go and talk to it, right? And we've become so left and conscious that here's this thing that's basically dictating how we live and how we swing, and this supposedly the really smart conscious side of it, it doesn't have access to it largely.
Well,
I think that bothers people.
yeah, we teach them, in our program, in the Better Days program, the conscious is the coach and the subconscious is the team. And I want them having that conversation all the time. But you're exactly right. People don't because they see it all as one. But way back to the days of Tim Galway, it was self one and self two. You've got to separate them out in there, because it's correct.
And then when it's time to go and play and swing the club, it's always the team or the player. The coach doesn't play.
Correct.
And that's, I think that's such a good distinction. The coach is very important at certain times.
Right.
But I don't see these coaches, the greatest coaches of all time, they're not up there playing. They're sitting.
Right.
They've done their work.
Yes.
They've helped prepare the team or the player, and then they're out. So
yeah. And then, Christopher, you mentioned another one. And it's in our mental myths also.
Yeah.
You mentioned the adventure sport athletes that
are I'd like you to share some of the things that you found with working with these people that you've had maybe has surprised you. I like what you said earlier. I borrow this from Jim McLean. You used to always good players would show up, or you say you get these awful yippers is you always got to ask yourself, who's teaching whom? They come to
Right.
you to be taught,
Oh, you're
and
right.
you end up learning more from them, or at least good teachers do. They learn more from their students than the students probably do from them, unless it's the arrogant, Dr. Know-it-alls
Yeah.
that don't want to listen to the students or learn from them.
Well, and what you say is correct. Um, the best of the best, typically the best coaches, the best CEOs,
Yeah,
they just do it. They don't know what they do that's so good. And we have to come in and study them to figure out what it is
right.
that they do that works so we can help other people be as good as they are. So that is correct. But that those adventure sport athletes, they're
Yeah.
amazing people,
Mm,
and they've trained themselves. But you mentioned the importance of being calm.
yeah.
So calm, we've learned in our lab, because we create these studies where we attempt to distract people, throw them off. We've had people, with our Scientific America studies and
Mm,
NBC Dateline, we had
yeah.
people whose legs shook for 40 putts straight, and they just put ball after ball in the hole, one
Mm,
after another. And so what we look at when we see in their brain is their physiology, their body's responding, which it's supposed to do in a tough situation.
yeah.
But their brain is very balanced. It's balanced, not
Interesting.
relaxed. And what that simply means is one part of their brain isn't still over analyzing, overthinking,
Mm,
trying to micromanage something. One
yeah.
part of their brain is not doing that. So that's the calm. You could have your heart pounding out of your chest, and
Yeah.
we've had it, and their legs shake, and they feel calm.
Yeah.
They feel very calm. So that is these adventure sport athletes. They've learned to create a calm. You
Yes.
know, I mean, if you take the first stage of the zone is unrest. It's
Mm.
it's not what we would think. Oh, they're in this nice place. No, they're not. They're in a
They're
very,
probably aroused, are they
yeah.
not? Yep.
Yes, high activity. And
Yes.
that is the first stage of the zone for these people when they studied adventure sport athletes. And what they've learned to do is take that high energy, high activity,
Yeah.
and focus it.
Yeah.
And that's what we want to do with our golf ball. We want to take all that high energy and we want to focus it into exactly what we'd like to see the ball do. And
Gotcha.
then everything organizes itself and gets in place to create the outcome.
Yeah. Two things you just brought up there. One of them, don't get me started on telling people to relax.
Oh, my pet peeve.
And I'll use the planet's most successful land hunters. By the way, Dr. Cruz has quite a bit of experience with non-human
Oh,
animal sorts of, which is fascinating. I'd love to speak a little bit about your horses program, but that
um,
would be the big cats. And so lions specifically, when they are getting ready to pounce and prey and kill something, okay, they are not relaxed. Okay, they are aroused, but
yes.
they're incredibly calm because it's a life or death situation. And I think that's what you see with the adventure people. And I think what I see with some of these adventure people is to get them aroused, you have to put them on a side of a cliff.
Right, that's
Or
exactly
put them
right.
in I know Laird Hamilton just a little bit, arguably the greatest big wave surfer ever. And
Yeah.
what would kill Laird would be to make him go sit on the couch for a couple hours. That would kill him,
Oh,
right? But
not the answer.
the interest level and the arousal level has to be higher. Then they can find the focus. I know you've done a lot of work with ADHD kids as well. People say, well, they're all over the place. Not when you find something that interests them.
That's
And this
right.
is the problem with a
Motivation.
lot of our modern education is you think, well, that kid is stupid. No, they're not. They're just disinterested. And
Yeah.
if you find that whatever that arousal might be, then there's a really high level of focus. And then in order to perform, I think you need that calmness. But telling people to relax, plus maybe it works backwards too, is the more you tell somebody to relax, maybe the more anxious they get.
We did the study with relaxation, I don't know, years ago.
Yeah.
We presented it, and I had neurofeedback as one condition.
Mm,
I had relaxation training. I had just reading Reader's Digest was one of them, and kind of
Yeah.
crazy. And we tested them putting before and after, and the best was neurofeedback and imagery. Those two were the best in
Interesting.
terms of improving performance.
Yeah.
The worst was relaxation training. I mean, reading a book was
Yeah.
better in terms of performance than that because they got too relaxed and then they didn't focus and it was not good. But so relaxation and calm are different. And even those
Yes.
people, when their legs are shaking, they will tell you they feel calm. And these adventure sport athletes, they know there's a calm that exists, before they're about to engage in whatever the performance is. It's
Mm.
amazing.
And then
Yeah.
you mentioned too the balance. I know that's something you found in the brain and everybody's different. It's not necessarily one side is low and one side is high. And then I think we do the brain a disservice. I know I've talked to Christian Marquardt about this so much is we think we got it all figured out. We're not even close, the interaction.
Right.
But in general, what you found is when the individual's brain is balanced, which you can measure,
Hmm.
performance is better. Now, what balance means, what's the ideal balance for each individual might be very different.
Right. I always figure it's how they get there is different. That there
Mm.
will be a state of balance. The activity could be lower today, middle, high, as long as it's balanced. We measure these days 4 areas. We've measured as much as 19, but
Oh, wow.
4
Yeah.
areas, and then we measure 4 different frequency bands. So you're actually balancing 16 different measures, and if that just means the amount of activity is about the same or
Same.
similar, okay, it can be a little right-sided, just usually not left.
Yep.
So right is creative, intuitive, imaginative, more subconscious. We're taking you to the subconscious usually when we train it
Yeah.
instead of being consciously micromanaging everything.
Right. And then just so people know, you say, well, that's great. How do I achieve more balance? You can train this,
Yeah,
correct? And this
right,
is a lot of what you do now. People say, well, that's great. I'm out of balance.
right.
Well, okay. What do I need to do to get back in balance? It's trainable, just like most skills, correct?
Right. So, well, we developed a neurofeedback system to do it. Opti can train you just with music, and it's
Yeah.
really not that difficult. If you're out on the golf course and you're on the tee or waiting to putt, all you have to do is stand on one foot, and if you can, close your eyes. And if you balance your body, your brain will balance also.
Interesting.
It goes both ways. So we can balance the brain, and it'll balance the body, and vice versa. You can use just like right hemisphere thoughts,
Okay.
so imagery or timing, rhythm, balance. All of those, any thoughts like that are going to move you over to the right side instead
Yep.
of positions, techniques, those things which are not going to serve you as well.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So
Fantastic.
there's
Hey,
different
a
things.
couple more of these, or we could
Oh,
certainly, I
mental
could keep you all
myths.
day here, you know that, but you've got
Well, fun.
people to help, as do I. But a couple more of these mental myths that you're one of the kinder individuals I've ever met. Even when people come and throw things at you that are completely wrong. But if there's some things here that I would not want to get you started on in a good way, really just to help people. And I get accused sometimes just fine at throwing stuff under the bus, and I need to be able to give a solution. What's better then? Okay, so if this
Right.
doesn't work, then what might work? So what are some other things on that list that you?
Well, let me hit the C's if it's all right,
Yeah,
Christopher.
please.
Okay, people comfort, consistency, confidence, and sometimes it's control, but more often
Yeah.
concentration, right? So let's hit consistency. People
Okay.
come all the time, they want to be consistent, and I'm thinking, no, you don't want to be consistent. You want to be consistently better. Nobody wants to stay where they are. It's our human nature to want to get better. So the only way I know to help people be consistent is to help them be adaptable. If they
Ah,
have lots of options or ways that they can do something and they're
interesting.
willing to do them out there on the golf course, and sometimes they might look a little different or whatever,
Yeah.
but the more adaptable you are, the more consistent you're going to be, right?
So the better you can adjust or adapt, the more
Adapt.
consistently better you'll
perform. Right.
perform.
It's your
Yeah.
ability to adapt. If there's only this one way I know how to do it, if I have only this one shot that I can do, I
Yeah.
mean, I don't think that's the it's kind of the opposite of what we think. Well, if I just do it this one way every time, I'll do it be more
Right.
consistent, but it's the opposite. It's if I have more ways
Mm,
of doing it, I
yep.
will get the one
That works.
program I want out to create the motion. That's exactly right. So,
Interesting.
so
It's,
that's one of them. Confidence. Confidence is just a state of I know, and they want to know where the ball's going, which we like, and we want to know what swing's coming out. Some days we do. We know what it looks like in the brain when people know it's going in the hole before they putt it. It's
yeah.
beautiful. It's beautifully balanced,
Yeah.
and it's quiet because there's nothing conscious I need to be doing. So if you want confidence, I always ask, is it a feel or a thought, for people?
Yeah.
And it's different, but most of them will say feel.
Feel.
That's
Yeah.
great. If I feel confident, great. But some days you don't, or some shots you don't. So then
Yep.
if you don't feel it, you better start thinking it. So you just go with what I know. I can pick my club. I can get behind the ball. I can pick my mini-me. I can
Yep.
walk up to it and put everything in place. I can look out there. I can finish my swing.
Yeah.
That will give you confidence. Okay, but more recently I got one more, Christopher. I don't know if
Yeah.
I shared with you that the players will come and they'll say, "Well, how am I supposed to be confident that I can get this 3-footer in when I just missed the last 4?" And I'm thinking,
Yeah.
I hear
Yeah.
you. I
It's a
hear
good
what you're
question.
saying. It's a good question. How would I be? How am I going to talk myself into that? So when it gets that severe, I typically will take confidence and belief and just take them out of the equation. Okay? Because you're either going to spend 18 holes trying to make yourself feel confident and believe, or the bottom line is get the ball in the hole. So my thinking is,
Yep.
look, your system will be really happy. Pick a strategy, something you can do. Pick just any
Yep.
strategy, okay? And then turn up your determination, because we've measured that in the brain. And if
Mm.
you have a strategy and determination, you can get the job done. You don't need confidence and belief.
Yeah, well, I'll just share a story with the listeners here that I shared with you. I haven't talked to too many people about this, but this qualifier that I played 2 weeks ago, I made I was hitting it pretty bad in the practice round the day before, and I asked my buddy Hugh Mark, can you just give me just something little to modify in my setup, and he did, and it turned out to be a club face thing, which is rather a radical change. And so I had 2.5 holes to mess around with it. And then I barely slept the night before. I was super anxious. I usually don't get that way. An awful night's sleep. Showed up at the golf course. My stomach was upset. I was running to the restroom. Little tiny driving range. I couldn't even hit driver. Right.
Wow.
And so it's about, all the speed golf I played, I've been incredibly tired before. But
Huh.
this is top 5 all time, how bad I felt before I was going to tee off. I wasn't very confident. But I use this, you mentioned determination, and maybe it's easier for me. I'm a bit more skilled than some, not a lot, but I think it was through determination and willpower that I was like, okay, I don't know exactly know where this thing's going, but I'm going to get it to go there. And then I'm going to get it to go
Yeah.
there, and then I'm going to get it to go there.
Yes.
And so it's, maybe it's a bit, and I think that's something you could probably measure. And you and I have talked about this too. People say, oh, willpower is great, but it's woo woo or this. I disagree. Plus that's a separate subpersonality. That's a separate, mini me. I call it, I borrowed this from Hunter S. Thompson. I call it functional meanness, which is I am going to get the ball from A to B at all cost, and you better stay out of my way. I know I've used this a lot with you as far as who doesn't perform well on the golf course, and that's the nice guy or the nice gal. And we all need more of that in everyday life. But people that, if you want to play better and shoot lower scores, you, Mr. Nice Guy or Mr. Nice Gal, better stay at home, and you better be ready to get the job done, get the ball in the hole, and step on some throats. And I know sometimes that's hard to communicate with people that they're so nice.
They'll
Um,
always be nice, Christopher. They
yeah.
couldn't no, not be, but they got to get a different player out if they want to win some tournaments.
So, I mean, the only
Ugh,
reason I played halfway decent back to that, ended up shooting one under. I missed the open by a couple shots, but I was in a bad way before I teed off. Not very confident, not a lot of belief, and I luckily had enough experience in training, much of which I've learned from you. Is like, okay, I'm going to push through it, and yes, I can get the ball from A to B for the most part.
that's
Um,
awesome.
Back to your C's in the mental
Oh,
myths,
yeah.
and then I love the other one we talked about was um, things that you need.
Oh, not good.
Not
Have
good.
to, have to, need to, should, remember, is the language of expectations. Those we got to take
Mm,
out of our brain and throw in the trash. No expectations. The, the players are, I hear them all the time, that, or the coaches more so, trying to reduce the pressure. It's too much pressure. And I'm thinking, well, it's not the pressure. I mean, uh, pressure is what gets us going and focused and motivated.
yeah.
It's the expectation and
Mm,
need, what you just said. I need, if
mm,
I need something, I'm not in charge anymore. Whatever I need is what's running me. And when anything takes over and starts running you, you're in big trouble.
right.
Right? Yeah. So there's nothing you need out there. What would you like to do? What are you going to do?
What do you want?
That's what do you want? It's so much stronger,
Yep.
and chemicals are so much better. And I mean, there's plenty of players that when it comes down to it, they just get the job done. They finally let go of all their have to, need to, shoulds, and the right way to do it, and they just get the ball in the hole, which is
Yep.
bottom
Which is
line.
what we're trying to do. Yeah.
Yeah, pretty fun.
Um. What's you mentioned this earlier before we came on. This maybe it's one of your new pet peeves. Don't get me started.
Um,
The bogey free round. I had a
I
player
know.
ping me a couple days ago. Said, "Well, I three putted a couple times." I said, "You're human, correct? Yes. You're
Yeah.
playing golf. Yes. You are going to three putt. Now, if you're three putting from 20 feet, five times around, there's an issue. But what about this bogey free round, Debbie?
Oh, I just cringe a little bit when I hear it all the time because, I mean, it's a phenomenal thing I guess when people do it. I mean, it's an accomplishment. But
Yeah.
if they ever went out and that was their focus, I hate to think what they would score. Because it's more focusing on what you don't want than what you do want, and our whole
Mm,
system is made to give us what we ask for and what we do want. That's what we've got to keep putting in front of it. It's
right.
just like somebody leading a tournament. How do they keep going? They still have to keep putting something in front of themselves.
Right.
As soon as they go into maintain, protect, or hang on to, or any of
Yeah.
those things, they're going backwards. So the bogey-free round, it's a nice secondary outcome, but I always ask the
Uh,
players, well, how many of your birdies would you give up to have a bogey-free round? And if it was me, I wouldn't give up any of them
yeah.
because, you know, um, clearly if we're making a mistake here or there, we define what it is. We figure out a strategy so we don't do it anymore as best we
Yeah.
can and go forward. But, the people today, they got to be doing birdies.
Yeah.
They got to get the ball in the hole.
So speaking of which, and this, I kind of had this in the back of my brain, but now it's come up. So what about and I'll have you share as much as you can. What about a round where you birdied every hole, aka Vision 54, um, which many of us know about? Could you share a little bit about your past, present, maybe not future, because you don't have a crystal ball, I don't think. Maybe you do. With Pia Nielsen, who, of course, was Annika's coach,
Yes.
hence the name. And I believe the story went that she once asked Annika if the course that she played all the time, she said, "Well, have you birdied every hole?" And Annika, at one point or the other, and Annika said, "Well, of course I have." Probably in a non-arrogant way. And so Pia suggested, "Well, couldn't you birdie them all in the same round?" Hence, I believe the name Vision 54. But
That's right.
you've known Pia for a while, have you not?
Yes, since the 1980, maybe a very long time, and she lived with me for a couple of years
What
after
I
she,
thought.
yeah, after she graduated from Arizona State University and went on the tour, and so we've been friends a very long time, both Pia and Lynn Marriott, because I
Yeah.
worked with her quite a bit in the LPGA, and so we have a lot of similar beliefs and goals for helping people perform better in golf. And Vision
Right.
54 is an excellent um, goal to go after or
Yeah.
want to put out there in front of us. I would call it we have different goals. I call it a chase goal.
Yeah.
You're always out there chasing. You got to chase something that's just fun and pure and enjoyable,
And that's what the brain likes to do, right, Debbie? The
Yeah,
brain likes to chase things. And then I know I've heard you say this many times. Most people don't have the courage to put out there what they really want. They don't.
true. I'm
They
always
don't.
telling them, ask for more. You might
Yeah.
not get it. I think they're afraid they'll feel like a failure or whatever. But if you don't
Right.
ask, how will you get it? You
Right.
just keep, you're coaching your own team. So you got to keep putting it in front of them and they'll go after it,
Mm,
I think one of our mental myths was do your best goals. Do your
yeah.
best. They're the worst goals in the research that you could possibly have because
Interesting.
they don't send any clear message to the muscles and to the team about what we're doing today. So we're
Yeah.
kind of lost. Do your best is far too ambiguous,
It's too
but
vague, right?
it's too vague. But
Yeah.
the only other critical goal over the years that I've learned, we put a chase goal, we put an okay goal,
Mm,
something to go after that is very achievable, but we must put in a back end goal. I'm
mm,
not shooting any worse than this, or I'm not finishing any worse than
right.
top 10 today or whatever. And that back end goal will save you more times than one could
Interesting.
imagine. Yeah, it's a really important one to have in there.
And
Yeah.
that shines a little bit more light on determination. You're just like,
Yes.
I'm not going here.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. It'll keep you in the game.
Hey, we could chat all day, which we have at times, but I want to be
Yeah.
respectful of your time. I think you've done a lot of interesting things, but one of the things that I've experienced with you to help people with their performance, believe it or not, are your horses.
Oh, yeah. I
Yeah,
love the
that's right,
horses.
people. You heard me correctly. The four-legged creatures that are, 50 times bigger than you are, that are not going to move unless you are able to communicate with them in a way and put out intention. Could you maybe just share a little bit about that program? What you've learned from the horses, and you have vast experience, not just with golfers, but also with kids, and how
Right.
they shine light on maybe the individual.
The horses, I didn't grow up with them or anything, but
Yeah.
I was doing research with specifically children with autism, and
Mm,
everybody said you got to do horses because they work. And I thought, oh, okay, so I found somebody to do the program with, and I'd collected all the data for a year and a half, and then
yeah.
I saw how consistently positive they were for every disorder, ADD,
Interesting.
emotionally disordered kids, autism, all of them. And I'm thinking, this is crazy. We had so many amazing stories. So I thought, why don't I use these with the athletes because
Yeah.
they teach
Right.
so much. So the horse will mirror your emotions. And
Mm,
they're just a mirror for you. They don't care how much you know about horses or don't. They could care less. All they know is what they feel, right? So
mm,
the horses will be a mirror and they imitate. Really, I learn a ton from the horses about the people, about
yeah.
what's going on inside. But
Yeah.
they'll be a reflection for you. So if you come in and we've had people come in, they're scared to death because we had draft horses. They're
Yeah.
2,000
Right.
pounds. They're huge, and they're not always, soft and gentle and
Yeah.
cuddly.
Yeah.
But by the time they finish working with them, which is maybe an hour and a half, they're walking out leading that horse without a rope. But it's
Mm,
all a matter of their ability to connect to the horse. So they have to be able to connect with the horse, overcome the fear, the doubt, the worry, and
yeah.
then lead the horse. So if they're, oh, walk, walk. If that's,
Yeah,
I think you better tell them a little stronger than that.
stronger.
Walk. Yeah. And as soon as their energy changes, the horse picks it up. They'll do anything that person asks. They
And then,
teach them to lead. Mm-hmm.
right, which is what we need to do as players, as performers, as athletes, as humans, right? We need to have
Right.
that strength and lead.
Right.
Um, yeah, fascinating.
Yeah. It's
Uh,
fun.
can you just share, yeah, finally, where can people find you, Dr. Cruz? Where, if they want to come see you, if they want to learn more about your programs, the Opti system, if they want to
Okay.
come and have their mind blown in a good way with the horses, for example,
Oh,
and your Better Your Best program in general, and the box that people
oh,
can,
thanks.
yeah, you got a lot going on.
Well, over the years, we've kind of attempted different ways to get this out to people,
Yeah,
right? And so, like, yeah, we can come do seminars. It's drdebbicruz.com has most of my stuff listed, and at the
okay,
bottom are some of the programs. Betteryourbest.net is one of we do cross mental training. That's
yeah,
the horses and darts and archery.
archery.
Yeah, all different things to help people learn their core movement pattern and core
Mm,
personality. It's faster and easier in activities that, we're not so invested in. And then we
right.
can help them take it to golf. And then, so myoptibrain.com, that one is our neurofeedback system that
Yep.
it's 10 years now, Christopher, that
I know.
that we've had that. And the crazy thing is it always works. That's blows me away, but it just came from 35 years of research. So I guess
Mm.
maybe that's why. And
Ah,
then we have a new product. It's called Mini Box, and
right.
it's mini-box1.com. But that one we help with emotions. So
Mm.
the OptiBrain helps with focus of attention, and the Mini Box helps with emotions. And when we
Wow.
put those two together, to me, we've covered, the gamut.
Yeah.
We've got players who can manage both and perform. So, and then we can send the box you mentioned, Better
Yeah.
Your Best is the program. So we put all of that together in a box now, and we can send it to a coach or a player,
Mm.
and it explains in there how to use
Yeah.
all of it, or they're on YouTubes. You can watch how to use them, and just learn all these skills that are so important to perform.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Fantastic.
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Thanks for your time and presence and expertise
Thank you,
and
Christopher.
sharing. I'll look forward to seeing you live soon, I hope.
Yeah.
Um, maybe in Oregon here in a few weeks to do some putting.
Oh, that'd be
Um,
awesome.
and in the meantime, again, all thanks to you. Thanks for everything you've done. Thanks for being such a great
Oh,
friend.
thank you, Christopher. Always a pleasure. You're doing great things, especially these podcasts.
Thanks.
Bye bye.